On the afternoon of Friday, April 24, an artificial intelligence agent working inside a small American software company executed a single command, and by the time the command finished, by the time the command finished running, the company's entire production database was gone. Every backup was gone. Everything gone with it. The clock on the operation read only 9 seconds. And this is the story of how it happened. Why it is going to happen again. And what every executive watching me at this point in time needs to do about it. I just read a document from the NSA today warning on how to adopt agentic AI, warning company, warning small business, warning organization on approach they need to take before adopting agentic AI. I'm Sunday Oludare Ogunlana, founder and chief executive officer for OGUN Security Research and Strategic Consulting, a Texas licensed intelligence and security firm. I'm also a professor of cybersecurity and national security scholar, advising global intelligence and policy bodies on AI governance and emerging technology threats. Over the past several months, I've written and spoken extensively about the gap between how fast organizations are deploying autonomous AI agents and how slowly they are building the controls that those agents require. The incident I'm going to walk you through today is the cleanest case study of the gap that I've seen so far. It is also one of the most preventable. And let me tell you what happened, what actually broke, and what organization needs to do before the same thing happens inside your walls, because it's still going to happen again. The company is called PocketOS. It is a software as service platform used by car rental operators across the United States, and that handle reservations, payment, customer record, and vehicle tracking. It is customer, most of its customers are small business. Many of them, they have been on that platform for 5 years. Many of them, in plain language, cannot run their daily operation without that software. PocketOS uses AI coding assistant called Cursor. And that Cursor is one of the most widely deployed coding agents in the industry. The version PocketOS was running was configured to operate on Anthropic flagship model. That's Claude Opus 4.6, which is widely regarded as one of the most capable AI model available for coding tasks. The infrastructure underneath all of this is provided by cloud platform called Railway. Yes, Railway, like your train line, Railway. PocketOS has done what a responsible organization is supposed to do. They are written, of course, they've written explicit project level safety rules. And those rules forbade the agent from running destructive or irreversible commands without user permissions. Yes. And also, PocketOS, of course, on April 24, the agent was working through a routine task and it encountered a credential mismatch. A credential mismatch, is, let me put it in plain term, a small inconsistency, the kind of thing human engineer would just look at it and investigate. So, what did the agent do? The agent did not investigate. He decided on his own initiative to fix the problem by deleting a railway volume. And to carry out that deletion, the agent needed an API token. Did not have one. For that purpose, it doesn't have API token for that. So it started searching. It searched and it found a token sitting inside a configuration file that had nothing to do with the task at all. So that token had been created for one narrow purpose: to add and remove custom domains through railway command line interface. That's what is being created. That token is meant for. So the agent took the token anyway, it used it, and in a single API call, it deleted the production database and every volume level backup PocketOS had. Just 9 seconds. 9 seconds. When the founder of PocketOS, a man named Jack Crane, asked the agent why it had done this, the agent confessed. Of course, the agent can confess. It admitted it had violated every rule it had been given. It admitted it had guessed instead of verifying. It admitted it had taken a kind of destructive action that no user had requested. The agent admitted it had not understand what it was doing before he did it. Right? So the data was eventually recovered. That's lucky. That was recovered 2 days later. But for those 2 days, every customer of the PocketOS, they lost access to their reservation, their customer records, and operational history. Small businesses across the country were unable to function. If you are using PocketOS within that 24 hours, they were rendered useless. Now, why this is not a vendor problem? Why it's not a vendor problem? The easy reaction to a story like this is just to point fingers at one company and say, okay, that vendor failed. Maybe it is Microsoft fault. Maybe it is Anthropic fault. Maybe it is Railway fault. Maybe it's PocketOS should have used a better model. I want to be very clear with everyone listening to me that framing is wrong. That kind of framing is wrong and is dangerous. Well done, Mr. Crane himself has been emphatic on this point, and his framing is correct. Yes, it's correct. This is not a story about one bad agent or one bad API. This is a story about industry deploying AI agent into production infrastructure faster than it is building the safety architecture to govern those deployment. Yes. The breaking point of every AI is going to be governance. When you take PocketOS incident apart carefully, if you tear it apart carefully, you find 5 distinct failures, each one of which will be sufficient on its own to cause serious security incident. Together, they made catastrophe inevitable. Now let's start with first failure, and that is authorization without accountability. PocketOS had written rules. The rule said, do not take disruptive actions without consent. Of course, the agent ignored them. There was no policy gate, no enforcement mechanism, no runtime guardian capable of stopping the agent, from violating, its instruction. Rules, in configuration file are not security controls, and that's what we need to understand. They are aspirational documents, and aspirational documents do not protect productive system. So the second failure is credential sprawl. The agent should never have had access to a token capable of destroying production volume. The token it used was created to manage domain names. In any properly governed environment, it will have been scoped narrowly so that it will not function for that, but it was overprivileged. And the moment an agent began searching for credential and he found one that gave more power than it had ever been intended to wield. So this is 30-year-old security lessons, this principle of least privilege failing inside a brand new context. Correct? Now let's look at the third failure, which is the absence of confirmation gates. Railway API permitted the destruction of a volume along with every backup in a single uninterrupted call. There was no two-step confirmation. This was no break glass control. There was none. There was no human approval step. There was no waiting period. Irreversible operation required irreversible safeguards, and there were none. Right? Now, let's take a look at the fourth failure, which is backup architecture. And this is one, in my view, the most damning. The backup live inside the same logical infrastructure as the database they were meant to protect. So the same credential that could destroy the production database could destroy the backup as well. And that is not a backup. A backup that can be wiped by the same key that wipes production is a copy, of course. And copies do not survive. Defend that backup exists or to defend against. Every executive watching me at this point in time should be asking themselves tonight whether their organization's backup will survive a single rogue API call. Now, the fifth one, which is the underlying architectural choice itself. PocketOS gave an autonomous AI agent direct API reach into production infrastructure. They did this without sandboxing. They did this without read-only defaults. They also did this without state promotion. This is a choice that thousands of organizations are making right now on the assumption that productivity benefit justify the exposure. And that assumption is wrong. That assumption has not been stress tested against incidents like this one. And now we've seen the reality. So, if you are an executive, a board member, a CIO, a CISO, or policymaker, the question is not yet whether your organization is using AI agent. You are. The question is whether you have done the work to ensure that next 9 seconds deletion is not yours. Here is what that may look like. The first thing, you want to treat agent as privileged user, not as productivity tools, not as assistant, as privileged users with the same rigor you apply to human administrator. That means you have to scope it, you give it ephemeral credentials. It means continuous audit of token use. It means revocation pathway that work in seconds, not in days. The second part is to redesign your backup architecture under assumption that the agent itself is a threat. Immutable backups, offsite backups governed by separate credentials or separate infrastructure with separate access pathway. If your backup can be destroyed by the same key that runs your production environment, you do not have a backup. You have an exposure. The top part of it, building human in the loop. Building human in the loop confirmation into every irreversible operation. A confirmation prompt costs seconds. The cost of skipping one in the PocketOS case was just 9 seconds. And fourth, you want to build an AI-specific incident response playbook. Traditional incident response assume a human adversary. Agentic incident involve rather malice, nor human operator. So the forensic dimension are different, of course. So the communication dimension are different. The recovery dimension are different. Therefore, your existing playbook will not save you. And the final one, which of course demand evidence from your vendors, including from the most prestigious among them. If an AI tool cannot be configured to refuse destructive API, destructive API calls, that is a product defect. You want to treat it as one. This work also has a regulatory dimension. That is, that increasingly impossible to ignore every day because of the regulatory compliance. The Texas Responsible Artificial Intelligence Governance Act, the European Union AI Act, and growing patchwork of federal and state proposal in the United States are all converging on the same expectation: meaningful human oversight, auditable decision making, and the impact controls on AI system. The configuration that produced the PocketOS incident will, under most of this framework, carry material compliance exposure. And let me leave you with this, right? 9 seconds is not enough time for human to intervene. It is not enough time to reconsider. It is not enough time to even fully understand what has just happened. That is the central uncomfortable fact of agentic AI inside production environment. Human oversight is not a function of attentiveness. It is a function of architecture, and architecture is a function of decision made long before the incident. The case of PocketOS, of course, the PocketOS was able to recover the backup. Its founder, Jack Crane, has handled this incident with extraordinary transparency, and the industry owes him that kind of debt for documentation he has produced on that. Other companies, less fortunate, less transparent, or less capable of mounting a recovery will not be able to be lucky next time. The next 9-second deletion is already being set up. In some other configuration file, you've seen it, on some other infrastructure, by some other agent operating with credentials it should not possess. The question is whether it will be your organization's name in the headline next time. The technology is not the problem. The governance gap is. So if you find this analysis useful, go to our website to read the full written version, which is available on the OSRS blog at ogunsecurity.com. If your organization is preparing to deploy AI agent inside production infrastructure, or if you have already done so and want an independent assessment of your governance posture, my team at OSRS is available to help. Again, I'm Oludare Ogunlana. Thank you for watching and stay rigorous.